Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. It is Monday, February 2nd, and we are just under 6 weeks away from having a Selection Sunday March Madness bracket out. It is exciting times. So on today's episode, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to talk about the weekend that just happened. We saw good games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're going to talk about those. We'll try and keep it brief because we're going to dive into our top seeds. As of now, we're going to talk about our top 5 seeds as the weekend concluded. And then we haven't done rankings in a while. So just going to kind of update on the rankings. I know rankings don't really mean much right now, but there is a kind of an outlook that I'm trying to, kind of go for in a theme in some of these rankings that we're going to talk about. And then, of course, to close out the show, we will talk about the upcoming week of basketball, which is actually somewhat slow as the Super Bowl is, Super Bowl week is always typically somewhat of a slow week as all the coverage is on the Super Bowl. So this is the last week we'll have football, and then it'll be college basketball on the main stage. That is exciting. We are going to be ad-free today, so all I ask that you hit that like and subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Follow us on Instagram, specifically at Bracket Science with 2 S's, where you'll see all these fun graphics we're posting today. So let's dive right into it. We're kind of going to go all out of order right now with talking about the games that just happened. Let's actually start with what just happened on Sunday. As it's kind of fresh in our minds. So we have, 2 real big games to talk about. Number 9, Illinois did win at number 5, Nebraska. Nebraska now has suffered 2 straight losses. Illinois is playing fantastic basketball right now. Keaton Wagler is one of the best players in the country, not just one of the best freshmen in the country. 28 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Nebraska led by 6 at the half, and then it was all Illinois in the second half. This Illinois team is national championship good. Nebraska's really good too. There's no harm in losing to Michigan and then losing to Illinois. I think those are your 2 highest ranked teams at KenPom via the Big Ten. So no harm there. Braden Frager was really good for Nebraska coming back after that rolled ankle. He had 20 points, knocked down 6 threes. Rank Mass did play in the game. It should be noted that he was not 100%. He's been battling some flu-like symptoms, but Illinois picks up a huge Quad 1A win yet again. The other big one was number 23, Alabama, number 19, Florida. The big story coming in was Todd Golden talking about how, hey, even with Charles Bediako kind of talking to the press saying, we'll beat them anyways, and they did badly, 100-77. Let's talk about Florida and give them some love because, look at that stat line as you can see the graphic down below. Alex Condon was really good, 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, really balanced all the way through. Tommy Houck had 22 points. I'll talk about Tommy Houck here in a second. Ruben Chinyelu, 14 points, 17 rebounds. He has been on an absolute tear. Dane Bradshaw on the broadcast said he's the best defender in all of college basketball. Not a bad take whatsoever. I mean, there was a couple instances where he was staying in front of the Alabama guards. We know how lightning fast Latrell Wrightsell, LeBaron Philon, and Aiden Holloway are. Ruben Chinyelu was just guarding them one-on-one and sticking with them. He is a tremendous defender. Boogie Flan, speaking of tremendous defense, had 15 points and 8 assists and 8 steals. My goodness, this Alabama team just isn't the most talented Alabama team. Now, Nate Oates has obviously done a really good job since he's been there. He's won more games in the SEC than anyone since he's, taken over the reins at Alabama. This team just doesn't quite have all the pieces to be an elite level team. I would expect them to drop out of the top 25. They're still going to be good at home, and they can beat anyone with their 3-point shooting, but this team just not as talented as the past couple of years. LeBaron Philon looked rough in this game for the first half. He really struggled, had a little bit of a better second half, but it's Florida. For Tommy Houck, like I said, I think he's your SEC Player of the Year, and what we're going to talk about here in a little bit with Arkansas and a couple of the other teams that suffered some losses. You got to throw Vanderbilt in the mix as, maybe, they got a couple players. Tyler Tanner could potentially be an SEC Player of the Year candidate. I think it's Tommy Houck. I think Florida is definitely the best team in the SEC. They're all the way up to 7th at KenPom right now, and Tommy Houck is kind of the engine that makes it go. He was kind of just overshadowed by Chinyelu and Condon in this game. He still had 22 points. So I'm going to go with him as your Player of the Year in the SEC as of now. Other games that went on, I won't talk about all these. Iowa State drilled Kansas State at Kansas State. Jerome Tang's job security might be in trouble. It would be the largest buyout in history for college basketball stakes, but this Kansas State team is just getting worse and worse every season. The other one I wanted to mention, Memphis lost at home to Tulane. Memphis is sub 500 on the season. Penny Hardaway with a little bit, I'll give him, I've been saying for a while, it's like he's been on the hot seat for a while and it's hard to get off of it. But he got unlucky last year being a 5 seed and having to play that Colorado State team that was just on an absolute heater and could have made the Sweet 16 if it wasn't for a Derek Queen buzzer beater. So, Memphis was a 5 seed and kind of got unlucky with their draw. I think Colorado State should have been at like worst an 11 seed, winning the Mountain West tournament with the tear that they were on. And, kind of bad luck for Memphis. I think Colorado State was even favored in that game. So kind of tough luck last year for Penny Hardaway. And then it's just been bad this year. So job security is, a little bit iffy. All right, let's talk about Friday. Actually, you know what? Just briefly, let's just mention Thursday because we just talked about Illinois. It should be noted Illinois earlier in the week did beat Washington 75-66 on Thursday. We haven't talked since Thursday. And then the other one I just wanted to know, UC Irvine in Hawaii. For those people who follow the show, know I love me some Big West hoops. These are your top 2 teams to probably 13 seeds, whichever one wins the Big West tournament. UC Irvine did beat Hawaii in overtime 87-76 earlier in the season. Hawaii beat UC Irvine in overtime. So these are going to be your 2 teams to kind of watch out for. They could be some sneaky teams come March Madness time. Let's move on to Friday, where the game we got to talk about. Number 3, Michigan did go to Michigan State and pick up a victory, 83-71. Yaxel Lendeborg, 26 points, 12 rebounds. My biggest pet peeve, this is off topic, my biggest pet peeve in the world is when people call him Yaxel Lendenborg. Where are we finding an N? These are like high. Every time I turn on an analyst on CBS or something, they're like, Yaxel Lendenborg. Where are you finding the N? Anyways, he was awesome. 26 points, 12 rebounds. Elliot Cadeau has also been really good. It's weird to see Elliot Cadeau, like, he's an actual good shooter. Like, his form looks a lot better and he's confident. He's a good shooter. He had 17 points, 6 assists in this game, was really impressive. Jeremy Fears Jr. had 31 points and 7 assists for Michigan State. I know there was a lot of, this is a really heated rivalry. This is a big rivalry. I know Michigan fans were all over Jeremy Fears for, a little bit of some flopping action, but yeah, Michigan does end up getting the win, 83-71. Jeremy Fears has a tremendous game, just not enough. Dayton and number 21 St. Louis, your 2 most talented teams in the A10. St. Louis drilled them 102-71. Don't let this St. Louis story be overshadowed by the likes of Miami of Ohio. St. Louis is a team that can win a couple games in March Madness. This team has all the talent in the world. Josh Schertz is out buying shots at the bar for the the students after the games. He's also he's putting a belt to a chair. It's this St. Louis team has good vibes right now, and they're a really good basketball team. We won't talk about any of the other results on there. Now let's talk about Saturday, the big day that just happened, and where else to start but with BYU and Kansas. Debanza versus Darren Peterson. It was all Kansas in the first half. BYU fought back, but Kansas gets the job done 90-82. Darren Peterson had 18 points all in the first half, only played 3 minutes in the second half. Bill Self said he was having some cramping issues again. This is just one of the weirder stories we'll ever find. But in that first half, it was like an, oh my God, he's incredible sort of thing. He had 18 points in 17 minutes in the first half. Had 3 steals, was defending, was calling off, ball screens to just take AJ Debanza one-on-one. He's just a different kind of player. Now, this was a tough spot for AJ Debanza going into Allen Fieldhouse, and that place was absolutely rocking. And Darren Peterson was just like, all right, this is why, even though I haven't played that much, I'm still the projected number 1 pick in the NBA draft, because I've never seen a shot maker like him in my life at the college level. He's getting the comparisons to Kobe, and, maybe it's not fair to Darren Peterson to have to try and live up to those expectations, but the type of skill that he has, just every shot looks effortless. Saw someone on Twitter, I don't know where it was, say, he doesn't see hands in his face. Like, he just looks right through him. He can see right through him. That's how it is. You get a hand in his face, it doesn't matter. He still just pulls up with the same confidence. I've never seen someone shoot and it never hits the rim. It's always just like dead center swish. He's an incredible player, but this injury thing is just super strange. But let's give love to his teammates in the second half. Now, it was very obvious they need Darren Peterson when the second half and BYU went on the run. But Bryson Tiller was really good. He was really good in the first half as well. He had 21 points, 7 rebounds. Melvin Council had 15 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. He's become their second guy. Trey White was also fine, and then Flory Badunga had 16 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. This Kansas team, when Darren Peterson is playing, can beat anyone, because Darren Peterson, there's no doubt he's the most talented player in college basketball right now, and he's a difference maker, but they got to keep, they're getting better and better, and they're getting more used to him being in the lineup until he's not in the lineup. So they got to, we'll see what that injury thing is. If it comes down to can he play 30 minutes a game come March Madness time, or can he be a guy who he should be a guy as good a shape as he's in that plays 38 minutes a game? Because that's how much, that's how important he is and how big of an impact he makes. But Kansas gets the win. Nevertheless, they're on a really good stretch here. They were like a crazy comeback against TCU where Kansas won the game. If they didn't win that game, they'd have been 0-3 in the Big 12. They're now 6-2. So they're, playing really good. On the BYU side, Richie Saunders, my goodness, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 6 threes in this game. There was an interview from John Rothstein with Bill Self earlier in the week where Bill Self, of course, Rothstein's going to ask him about is what are you seeing with the Devanza versus Darren Peterson sort of thing. And Bill Self kind of was giving a lot of flowers to Richie Saunders. He's like, look, Devanza's awesome. We know he's awesome, but Richie Saunders is the guy that we got to stop. He's an incredible shot maker. And he was fantastic. I mean, he's a tall guy. His shot's so high. He gets a bunch of elevation. I think Richie Saunders is going to be an NBA player in a couple seasons, maybe even next season. I'm not sure what year he is. I should have looked, but he's going to play in the NBA, in my opinion. He's really good. AJ Devanza had 17 points, only 1 rebound, 1 assist, was kind of a non-factor in the first half. He kind of took over in the second half for a little bit, but it was Richie Saunders was their best player. And like I said, with Darren Peterson, he makes an impact. He really, at least in this game, AJ Devanza obviously makes an impact in every game as well. He's fantastic, but Darren Peterson in this particular game was creating for other players. He was getting steals. AJ Devanza just kind of fell into not doing too terribly much in this game, but he's still really good. These are going to be your top 2 picks in the NBA draft, but Kansas gets the better of them. All right, let's move on and stick in the Big 12 where number 11 Texas Tech loses at UCF. UCF is an interesting team. They have a really good resume building out. However, the computers don't quite like them. So Texas Tech ended up being a 4.5-point favorite coming into this game. But UCF just keeps winning these games. And I give credit to the UCF home court environment. It's one of the most underrated home court environments in the country. I don't even know if it's underrated anymore. It's just really good. Themis Folks had 21 points, 7 assists. John Bull, 14 points, 10 rebounds. He looked fantastic in this game. Free throws are still ugly, but he looked really good in this game the entire way. Texas Tech just didn't quite have the size to put up with him. UCF is probably they're a weird team to rank. They have a very similar resume to that South Carolina team 2 years ago. Was that 3 years ago, where they were a 6 seed, ended up losing to the 11 seed Oregon in the first round, where they were actually an underdog. Because they had a 6 seed because their resume was so good. However, all these predictives, Ken Pom, Torvik, basically were saying they're like the 45th best team in the country based on win margin, who they're beating, how they're beating them. But sometimes teams just win games, and that's what UCF is doing. UCF is huge, too. They have a lot of size, a lot of physicality. Johnny Dawkins runs a really good offense as well. So credit to UCF. They're probably like a fringe 6-7 seed right now. On the Texas Tech side, JT Toppin had 27 points, 10 rebounds. However, I thought he looked just a little bit out of sorts in this game. It's crazy to say because he had 27 points, 10 rebounds. He makes a couple mistakes. There's a reason Christian Anderson is like a lot higher in mock drafts than him. Like JT Toppin's been an All-American to this point, as has Christian Anderson. But Christian Anderson, you can just tell it's like, he's different. He can knock down 30-footers. Christian Anderson had 17 points, 9 rebounds. This was also a court storm that failed for UCF. There was Tony. I call out players when they don't do their jobs. Let's be honest; these players are doing jobs in the NCAA right now, just like they would in the NBA. So let's call out refs when they don't do very good jobs. Tony Padilla was on the broadcast was talking about him a lot. He called a foul with 0.2 seconds left it was a 9-point game at the time. It was on, Lawan Watts sent him to the free throw line. A storm court. Why are we calling a foul with 0.2 seconds left? No matter if it's a foul or not, the game is over. Or even if you see it, just wave it off. This was ridiculous. They had to get all of the UCF students off the court. So there was 2 court storms. And this is after Tony Padilla went after Donovan Atwell earlier in the game. And just even the announcers were like, if you're going to do that, just tee him up. It was kind of just trying to embarrass Donovan Atwell in the game, yelling at him. I don't know. It was super weird. I did not like what I saw from Tony Padilla in this game. So we're going to call out refs when we see bad things like that. Kind of show some professionalism there. I don't know what we're doing. He wanted people to know he was in charge of that game. Speaking of not really doing your job, Lawan Watts was terrible in this game for Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is better when he doesn't play. They need Luke Bamboy back. He only played a couple minutes in this game. He's coming back from the injury. Josiah Mosley has also been playing more. Lawan Watts was like unplayable in the second half of this game for Texas Tech. And I saw it in the first half. I'm like, Lawan Watts is just an issue. UCF was just begging him to shoot the three. And he wasn't making them. And then he's a booty ball kind of guy. And UCF has a ton of size. So it was like a bad matchup for Lawan Watts in this game. But Texas Tech needs size down low, and Lawan Watts is just like he can't jump. He's not like he's not the athletic type. He's just a big body who kind of bullies you down low. They need Luke Bamboy back. That was kind of the takeaway I got from this one. And Josiah Mosley was playing a lot more minutes in the second half because Lawan Watts was unplayable in this one. So Lawan Watts is like only, in my opinion, my takeaway from this game was he's only going to be able to make an impact when he is going against very inferior competition or guys that are much smaller than him. So that's something to kind of look forward to. Texas Tech is going to need Bamboy to, become healthy and, available over the next couple of weeks for this Texas Tech team to be a national championship threat. All right, moving on. How about this one? Kentucky wins at number 15, Arkansas, 85-77. Mark Pope gets revenge. This was Kentucky from the start. I have no idea what to think about this Kentucky team. They are all over the place, but a huge win here. Otega Owe was fantastic. 24 points, 8 rebounds, 9 of 12 from the field. I predicted in our last preview show that I think someone's going to get ejected in this game. I just threw out Otega Owe. I'm like, someone like Otega Owe is going to get thrown out in this game. No one got ejected, I don't believe, but there was, I believe, 7 technical fouls in this game. So it was very, very chirpy. I thought Arkansas was going to kill them. I'll be the first to admit it. And it was Kentucky from start to finish. I don't really love this Arkansas team whatsoever. I know like people like John Rothstein we mentioned earlier, it's like Arkansas is the best team in the SEC. They have the best player in the SEC. I don't think Arkansas is anywhere near even the level of Florida. I know they beat Vanderbilt earlier in the season at Bud Walton. So Arkansas is right there, but they're not a national championship threat. Darius Acuff was fine in this game. They got pretty much nothing out of Carter Knox in this game, pretty much nothing out of Nick Pringle in this game. But the story is Kentucky. It's obviously not the best shooting team in the country, but Otega Owe, when he has games like this, can kind of just be that driving factor. And Kentucky has the defensive pieces to, be competent, and they're 6-3 in the SEC. So credit to Mark Pope. He's done a good job with a kind of just disoriented roster, gets his revenge at Coach Cal. Sticking in the SEC, we'll get through these ones a little bit quicker, as those were kind of, the 3 real big results. Auburn lost at Tennessee 77-69. Nate Ament wasn't real efficient, but had 22 points, 8 rebounds. He looked like the best player on the floor. Got to the free throw line a ton. Tennessee and Kentucky. These are 2 teams when they're like Tennessee is going to be a 5 seed as of now. Kentucky's probably like a 6 or 7 seed at this point. I have no idea what I'm going to do with them when I'm filling out a bracket, and I don't think anyone can really know because it seems like they can beat anyone, but I have no idea what to think about these teams. Texas won at Oklahoma 79-69. Oklahoma is god awful, but Texas, credit to them. They're only 13-9 on the season, but they're picking up a bunch of road victories. I would have Texas in the field right now, probably as a Dayton team going to the first 4. Dalen Swain has been the big piece that has moved this needle in the right direction for Texas and Sean Miller. He's really stepped it up and has become their best player. He had 18 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists and 3 steals. Really good stat line there. Tremont Mark and Jordan Pope are starting to kind of just fit in instead of just being your turn, my turn sort of thing, because Dalen Swain has kind of taken over. And Vojtetitis has been more serviceable. So Sean Miller's done a good job, in my opinion, with a lot of Rodney Terry's guys. But bringing over Dalen Swain obviously was the biggest thing. Indiana won at UCLA 98-97 in double overtime. What can you say about Indiana and Darian DeVries? They're playing really well right now. They would be outside of the first 4, in my opinion, right now. Back-to-back quad 1 wins. They would be a bye team, maybe a 9 seed or so right now. Nick Dorn, Wilkerson, and Reed Bailey combined for 74 points in this game. That's not the big 3 I was expecting. Well, I guess sort of. Wilkerson, at least. Lamar Wilkerson, but Tucker DeVries was fine. He had a bunch of rebounds in this game, but wasn't that great. He was fine, but Nick Dorn's really stepped up, and Reed Bailey had his best game in an Indiana uniform. So good for good for Indiana to pick up this win and get solidified into the tournament. UCLA is still on the bubble, and Mick Cronin is continuing to complain. I think people are starting to really turn on Mick Cronin. It's just like one comment after another where it's like, dude, take some responsibility, stop blaming everything. And he does, but he does it in a sarcastic way. It's my fault. I recruited these guys. And I keep seeing comments like the top comment I always see, who would want to play for this guy? And I don't disagree, because it's like, dude, you got to stop whining at some point. And the past couple seasons hasn't been that great. He had a really good start to his UCLA tenure. The past couple seasons haven't been that great. Donovan Dent had a good game, 24 points, 11 assists in this one. I believe the NIL money was, I know it was obviously better than last season, but I believe it was still one of the better ones in the sport this season. Obviously going out and getting Donovan Dent. I believe even Xavier Booker was sort of expensive. Bilodeau's been fine. This UCLA team just isn't clicking. And to me, that's bad coaching. Sticking in the Big Ten, Ohio State lost at Wisconsin 92-82. John Blackwell looked like the best player in this game. He had 22 points. Bruce Thornton was fine on the other side. That was kind of a good matchup going back and forth. John Blackwell, Bruce Thornton, two of the most underrated players in the country. Ohio State is very 50-50 whether they're going to make the tournament. I think Wisconsin's going to be in. They're probably like an 8 or 9 seed right now. Ohio State, I saw someone say on Twitter where it's like, Jake Diebler, you make the tournament, you probably have a job next year. You miss the tournament, you probably don't have a job next year. So a lot of pressure there, not up to Ohio State expectations. Number 4, Duke did win at Virginia Tech, 72-58. Duke is awesome. They're flying under the radar. Duke, Cam Boozer had 24 points, 8 rebounds in this game. And then how about this one? Cal won at Miami, 86-85. John Camden, 26 points, 4 of 5 from 3. Mark Madsen and Cal, a sneaky little team here. I haven't quite done the full bracketology and bubble watch. I'll do that for Thursday's show. So hopefully Cal doesn't lose until then. I'm not sure if they have a game or what. But Cal would be like are they in or are they out? They're very close right now. So a really underrated job by Cal and Mark Madsen. Both of the California, West Coast ACC teams with Cal and Stanford were both very bubbly, but Stanford has kind of been ahead of Cal the entire season until Cal won at Stanford, and now Cal wins at Miami. Cal has surpassed Stanford by quite a bit. Cal might be in the NCAA tournament. We'll see if they can keep this up, but good win there. I think Miami, Florida is one of the more overrated teams in the country, but they're going to be one of those teams that's probably going to end up being like an 8 or 9 seed, and it's like, what do you do with them? So we'll see. Moving on, Gonzaga did beat St. Mary's 73-65. Graham Ike was awesome, had 30 points in this game in his return from injury. Gonzaga's playing without Braden Huff, and I'm going to say something that people might not like. I think they're better without Braden Huff. I know Braden Huff gets a ton of love, and he's a very good individual player. I just think their defensive upside is so much better without Braden Huff. So we'll see if that kind of becomes a theme come March Madness time, if Braden Huff is kind of more playing a role. I know like he's going to get his shots, but if he's going to maybe play a little bit less minutes, because you can see what they can do on the defensive side without him. So we'll see. They obviously need him for offensive purposes and for their ceiling to be as high as possible. But on defense, I like this team a little bit better without Braden Huff. Moving on, San Diego State and Utah State, the battle for the top 2 teams in the Mountain West. Utah State got them 71-66. Utah State kind of didn't play too well in this game and still got the victory. San Diego State just doesn't have enough options on the offensive end, in my opinion. I know their offense is better than it's been in years past, but in games like this where they're playing elite competition, you kind of see it struggle a little bit. Utah State, like I said, didn't play their best game and still won the game by 5. I do think Utah State's your best team in the Mountain West. However, I'll go out on a little bit of a limb here, and I just want to shout out the Utah State home court environment, because that place was rocking. That place was awesome. Utah State's probably going to be, in the NCAA tournament. They're probably 8 or 9 seed right now. They're fine. They're not quite, they're a little bit bubbly, but not quite solidified on the bubble. San Diego State, very bubbly. New Mexico, very bubbly. I think it's going to be a random team that, this probably a hotter take, that's going to win the Mountain West tournament. Maybe someone like, I don't know, maybe like a New Mexico. Maybe that's not too hot of a take, but this Utah State team's really good, obviously, but they're going to be at large caliber, in my opinion. So San Diego State's going to be playing for a lot. New Mexico's going to be playing for a lot. I think we're going to get a random team. Like Colorado State's not very good, but maybe like a Nevada or like even a Grand Canyon that's going to win the Mountain West tournament. And but we'll see. I would probably pick either Utah State or New Mexico. I think San Diego State is actually the 3rd best team in the Mountain West, in my opinion. But it's going to be a fun race, nevertheless. Moving on to the ACC, SMU and number 20 Louisville. Louisville won 88-74. I think SMU is overrated as well. I don't think they're a bad team. They're probably going to be in an 8-9 game or so. As it stands right now, but Louisville just kind of gave it to them in the second half. Stanford, like we mentioned, against they lost to Cal a little bit earlier. They did lose at Florida State. This is a game that you can't lose. Florida State is playing better, but still not a good team, 88-80. Stanford falling off of the bubble. And then how about Texas A&M? They win at Georgia 92-77. It was domination from pretty much start to finish. Georgia fought all the way back, but Texas A&M is better. This Georgia team, by the way, be careful. This is what happens when you don't play a good non-conference schedule. You don't beat anyone worth noting. They would probably be like a 10 seed right now. They're on the bubble, believe it or not. I know they're, I think they're a good team as well. I think they're solid and have some pieces to even maybe make a run in March Madness. They have, the shot making ability, but this is what happens when you play a weak non-conference schedule and, you keep losing in conference play. They're 4-5 in the SEC. Rayshon Agee has been fantastic for Texas A&M. He had 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. He has solidified himself as the best player on this Texas A&M team. Bucky McMillan should be, on the short list of coach of the year candidates if he were to get them to, maybe like a 5 or 6 seed. As of right now, I would have them as probably like a 7 seed, even as being, your first place team in the SEC. They had coming into this game, I haven't checked since. Actually, I can check right now. They had played the easiest schedule in the SEC coming into this game. And so that was kind of the big thing. It's like, they're kind of going to fall off. But when you get a road win like this at Georgia, yeah, that's pretty good. I actually can't pull it up right now. The computer doesn't work as usual. But we'll maybe talk about them a little bit more once we get to bracketology talk. All right, let's move on and talk about Arizona as they win at Arizona State to stay undefeated, 22-0 on the country. What else can you say about Tommy Lloyd's squad? They're your favorite to win the national championship, as they should be. They're really good. And then the number 2 team in the country, UConn, went to Creighton and just dominated the entire way, 85-58. And then Baylor won at West Virginia. Murray State and Belmont. This is the mid-major game I wanted to highlight. Belmont won 103-80. What is that, a 6 or an 8? 86. I will keep highlighting Belmont until I can't anymore. Drew Charnowski, 19 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. Tyler Lundblade, 27 points in this one. I think they're the best one-bid team in the entire country, unless there's one I'm missing. I mean, maybe you want to consider like the A10 as one, but teams that aren't going to get an at-large team, I think it's Belmont. I think this team is going to be your scariest 12 seed once the March Madness comes around. This team can score it. This team can defend it. This team is really fun. This team scores on the inside. I really like this Belmont team, so I want to keep labeling them. All right, so we already talked about Sunday's games. No need to talk about anything more there. Next, we are going to dive into our bracketology, our top 5 seeds as it stands right now. Alrighty, so here is the graphic of your top seeds as it stands right now as of February 2nd. So you got Arizona, Duke, Michigan, UConn. Nothing changes along the 1 line. The 2 line does change with that Illinois road win at Nebraska. I have Illinois as your first number 2 seed. Now, Illinois actually has a very favorable schedule coming down the stretch. I believe they have 5 quad 1 games remaining, which is not a ton for the Big Ten, but so it's a somewhat serviceable rest of the schedule for Illinois. Illinois is 6th in strength of record, 6th in wins above bubble, 5th at KenPom, 7th at Torvik. Really good across the board. I would have Illinois as your first number 2 seed. Iowa State is just kind of been written off by everyone. Not quite sure why, because I think this is TJ Altenberger's best chance to make the Final Four. This team has all the pieces. They have a veteran point guard. They got the best shooter in the country. And they also have Josh Jefferson, one of the best players in the country. So Iowa State's right there. Iowa State's 4th in the net and 4th at KenPom, 4th at Torvik as well. And 8s across the board in resume-based metrics. So they're solidified as a 2 seed right now. Houston right behind them. I'm still going to keep saying it. I think, like right now, if the tournament happened, I would pick Arizona to win the national championship. They're fantastic. Michigan's obviously right there. And like I said, don't sleep on Duke. Illinois, Iowa State, I think are more like Final Four-ish good. I think Houston's national championship good. I would have probably Houston maybe in the national championship game. Obviously, it depends on where it falls. If Houston were to have to play Arizona as a 1 versus 2 or whatever, or against Michigan, we'd see. But Houston is right there as a national championship threat. Still have Nebraska as a number 2 seed. No harm losing to 2 top 10 teams, top maybe 5 teams once the AP poll releases in about 2 hours. So we'll see how high Illinois climbs, but Nebraska's still fine. 3 seeds, Gonzaga as your first 3 seed. With that win over St. Mary's, they still just don't have a ton of quad one opportunities. And now, it's going to be even a little bit harder now that that home game against St. Mary's is over with. Purdue is still a number 3 seed. Purdue's resume is so much better than you think. And it's like, I would agree. I don't think this team is all that awesome, especially right now. Like they're a good team, but they've been struggling. Let's be honest. They're 8th at KenPom, 9th at Torvik, 8th in the BPI. Their strength of record is 12th, 9th in wins above bubble. They don't have any losses outside of quad one, and they have 6 quad one wins. So they still have a really good resume, would be in there as a 3 seed. Michigan State as well. Kind of right there, kind of a surprising one. Michigan State, oh, actually, you know what? One of them changed. So Michigan State does have a quad 1A win now, which was the game against North Carolina actually moved up to being a quad 1A win. So Michigan State does have one quad 1A win. Gonzaga, another team with only one quad 1A win, as does Houston, only one quad 1A win. But, not all quad 1 games are created equal. Not all quad 1A games are created equal. So take that with a little grain of salt, but kind of notable. And then the last 3 seed, I do have Florida. Now, like I said, Texas A&M would be your automatic qualifier out of the SEC. I think it's very obvious that Florida is your best team in the SEC. So if you want to put them as an automatic qualifier, the winner of the SEC regular season will not be worse than a 3 seed. I can promise you that, as long as it's probably Florida, Vanderbilt, or, Tennessee's even there now, Alabama, even maybe Kentucky. I don't know. But I think Florida's going to win the conference. And with Florida being, they're 6th at Torvik, 7th at KenPom, 7th in the BPI. They have 4 quad 1 wins. I know their strength of record is 18th and wins above bubble is 18th. With those predictives, these predictives are telling you they're better than you think. And pretty much every time you watch them, you're like, this team is really good. This team can beat anyone in the country. It was between Florida and Vanderbilt for my last 3 seed. And I'm not a huge head-to-head guy, for those who know. For those who watch the show, I don't have much impact. But when it's very similar resumes like Florida in Vanderbilt and Florida won at Vanderbilt, like if Florida were to win at home against Vanderbilt, I really wouldn't have counted it that much, because Florida, you should protect your home court, as I say. But when it's this close and the predictives are really good and you won at Vanderbilt, I did give it to Florida. Kansas is also close, but not quite there yet, in my opinion. So I think Florida is your last 3 seed. Like I said, Texas A&M would be the automatic qualifier. I did look. Texas A&M has played still, even with that win at Georgia, the easiest schedule in the SEC so far. So first 4 seed is Vanderbilt. They're still right there. Kansas right behind them. Kansas climbing up, obviously. Texas Tech right behind them. They are going to play later tonight. We'll preview that game in the games to watch. And then Virginia still is the last number 4 seed. They're not playing too well right now, but they're squeaking out some victories. They are 4-0 in quad 1A. Now, like I said, when I read off these teams that they've beaten, they're not the elite of the elite, but they are 4 road wins at Texas, at NC State, at Louisville, at SMU. That's pretty good. It does matter where you win these games as well. They have lost 2 quad 1 games, so they're 4-0 in quad 1 and 4-2 in quad 4-0 in quad 1A, excuse me, and 4-2 in quad 1. So their other 2 quad 1 games they have lost, which was North Carolina and Virginia Tech. So they're still fine. They're still in good shape. And then up next, 5 seed BYU. This is the most surprising one. BYU does not have a quad 1A win. Now, they don't have any losses outside of quad 1. Their quad 1 wins are Villanova, Wisconsin, Miami, Florida, and Clemson. So, teams that are in that, Clemson probably a 6 seed, Villanova probably a 7 seed, Wisconsin probably an 8 seed, Miami probably a 9 seed. So, you've beaten those teams, but haven't won a quad 1A game yet, which is UConn, at Texas Tech, Arizona, and at Kansas. That's pretty tough. Those are your high-end quad 1A games. Like, those are tough places to play. So no real harm there, but not as great a resume as you might think. I do have Tennessee up next, who is climbing as of late. Alabama is still right behind them. I know I'm going to get some flack about this, them still being there. I know, I go Alabama, North Carolina, and then Arkansas. Arkansas is really close. There's an argument for Arkansas. But Alabama, it's just, they've played such a tough schedule that their resume isn't taking much of a hit when they lose these games. They're 20th in strength of record. That's 5 seed. 21st in wins above bubble. That's fringe 5-ish seed. An average of 19.3 in predictives. That's pretty much about a 5-ish seed. And then when they don't have any losses outside of, or they have 1 quad 2 loss, but they have 2 quad 1A wins, 3 quad 1 wins, 6-1 in quad 2 for 9 wins inside the first 2 quadrants, which is good for just blind guessing it, maybe like 12th in the country, somewhere around there. So Alabama is still a decent resume. I agree. I don't think they're that great, but would still have them as a 5 seed. That's what happens when you play a really tough schedule. And then North Carolina up next. as your next 5 seed. North Carolina and Arkansas are close. You might actually lean Arkansas when you look at the team sheet on barttorvik.com for resume averages. Would lean Arkansas, along with predictive averages would lean Arkansas, but North Carolina does have better wins. They're 3-2 in Quad 1A compared to Arkansas being 2-5 in Quad 1 in general. North Carolina's 4-3 compared to Arkansas being 4-6. Now Arkansas is a little bit better in Quad 2, but Quad 2, nothing wrong with them. But just those Quad 1A games is why I said North Carolina. But there's definitely an argument for Arkansas. I could see it going either way. So Arkansas fans don't hate me too much there. So that's your top 5 seeds as it stands right now, at least in my opinion. Now I just want to get into some rankings. Haven't done rankings in a while, but I thought this would kind of be a fun time to do it just because just look at these records. That's the way I wanted to look at it. So Arizona, number 1, they should be number 1, 22-0. Michigan is 20-1. Like they're cooking. They're still cooking. They're the best team in the Big Ten right now. Analytically, they're right there. Duke is also 20-1. They've had a really good start to the season. Cam Boozer looks like the player of the year. UConn 21-1. A lot of 1-loss teams. I don't remember a time where there's been, there's 2 0-loss teams, and Miami of Ohio isn't on here. Sorry, Miami of Ohio. I'm not quite there as like a top 30 team. They're like 90th at Ken Palm. I'm not quite all the way there yet. But Arizona and Miami, Florida, or Miami of Ohio, 0 losses. Look at all these 1 losses. Illinois, I do have at number 5 at 19-3. This team's ceiling just about as high as anyone in the country. I still have Houston at number 6, which might seem low. Like I said, this team's awesome. They have 2 losses. They were, them and Purdue were your favorites coming into the season, and Houston's 19-2. And any other season that's like, oh, that's the number 1 overall seed. There's just so many good teams at the top. Iowa State, I still have right there at 20-2. Gonzaga, 22-1 at number 8 in the country, in my opinion. I have Florida as a top 10 team. I think this team's awesome. They're 7th at Ken Palm. 7th at Torvik. Like I said, I think this team, or 6th at Torvik, excuse me. I think this team is a national championship threat. And then I got Nebraska right behind them at number 10. Nebraska's still a top 10 team, in my opinion. I'm going to cut it off at 9, though. Sorry, Nebraska. Not quite there. I think these top 9 teams can win the national championship this season. That's more than I've, thought for, that's the biggest crop of national championship threats we've had at this point in a while. Maybe, you can make the argument. I don't think Michigan State's offense is quite there. We'll see about Nebraska. Nebraska looks awesome. We'll see if Rank Mass gets healthy. Maybe you can count it to 10. Texas Tech, like I said, I think they can get to the Final Four with their shooting. I don't think they have the size and the personnel matchup to, compete with the Arizonas and the Michigans and even, maybe someone like the UConns of the world. Obviously, they beat Duke earlier in the season. They were down 17 in that game to Duke. People forgot, and fought all the way back with some really good 3-point shooting. So Texas Tech, I'll say they're a Final Four threat. I don't think national championship threat. Kansas is the one where it's like, I can see them getting there with Darren Peterson, but it's still with Darren Peterson. Will Darren Peterson be there? We'll see. Kansas's defense is fantastic. To me, Kansas is just like a little bit worse version of a Duke, though, in my opinion. And I would probably pick Duke as like my 5th most likely team to win the national championship, maybe 4th. But so I'm going to cut it off at 9. These are, and maybe even Florida is a little bit of a stretch there just because, the guard play, the guards have one bad game. It could kill them, but their front court is just so good. And Boogie Flan's been playing well. Clark Sharp's been playing good off the bench. But outside of that, I'll just go through these quickly. Purdue down to 14, BYU down to 15, Vanderbilt's at 16, Virginia 17, North Carolina 18, Clemson 19. So 3 ACC schools there. St. Louis right there at 20, also a 1-loss team. I got Texas A&M up to 21. I would expect Texas A&M to be ranked in the AP poll when it releases in about 2 hours. St. John's, Tennessee. I do have Arkansas and Alabama still ranked. I don't love that, but behind them, I don't think really any of these teams really deserve to be ranked. Louisville, who their resume is not great. They're 32nd in strength of record, 26th in wins above bubble. The predictives like them a little bit better, but the resume isn't quite all the way there yet. They would probably be a 6 or 7 seed right now. Could put them in there, but whenever they've played elite competition, it hasn't gone well. They have 0 Quad 1A wins as well. And then Iowa, who's kind of in the same boat. I haven't seen them beat the elite. Utah State, like I said, they're good. UCF, I wanted to get them in there. Maybe there's an argument for UCF at like 24, 25. I'll hear it out. And then Kentucky, what do you do with Kentucky? Kentucky will lose by 35 one night and then win at Arkansas, at Bud Walton, where no one's won this season another night. So no idea what to do with them. Rankings, these rankings really don't matter right now. I just kind of wanted to label these, these top teams and kind of label national championship threats and whatnot. All right, let's move on and talk about the upcoming week to watch. So Monday, we do still have a big Monday. Plus, we have an elite level mid-major game here that I do want to discuss. So on Monday, we have Syracuse at number 16, North Carolina. These numbers will update once the AP poll is released, and it'll be different on our Instagram. So be sure to go check that out. I would expect North Carolina to probably be a top 15 team. This 7 o'clock ESPN, North Carolina is favored by 12.5. Syracuse has to get something done, or they're going to be looking for a new coach next season. 7:30 on ESPN Plus. McNeese at Stephen F. Austin. These are your top two teams in the Southland. Now, believe it or not, right now, Stephen F. Austin is actually in first place in the Southland Conference. They are 12-1 in the conference. McNeese is 11-2. However, McNeese is favored by 1.5 on the road. KenPom does have it Stephen F. Austin -1, but the people are saying McNeese -1.5. That is a really fun mid-major matchup. Both teams would be, depending on what happens in the conference tournaments, a 12 or 13 seed. And then at 9 o'clock on ESPN, this is the game of the night. Number 14, Kansas, and number 11, Texas Tech. I would expect Kansas to be ranked higher than Texas Tech come game time. JT Toppin versus Darren Peterson. We'll see how much Darren Peterson's going to play. I believe the line's actually down to 3.5 now since I made this. I like Texas Tech in this game. I just think that home court environment, it's a really good spot for them coming off of the loss at UCF. Kansas also lost at UCF earlier in the season. Kansas has been playing really good. They're going to have Texas Tech's full attention. We'll see how much Darren Peterson can play. If you're going to give me Darren Peterson for 25 minutes in this game, that's all you're going to get. I'm going to take Texas Tech to win, and I think they cover 3.5 points in that matchup. Moving on, let's talk about Tuesday. So like I said, a little bit of a slower week this week, but number 24, Miami of Ohio, still undefeated, goes to Buffalo. Remember, Buffalo took them to overtime at Miami of Ohio earlier in the season. This is at 6:30 on ESPN Plus. Miami of Ohio is favored by 25 in that game. 7 o'clock on Peacock. Xavier, who has been struggling mightily at number 2, UConn favored by 19. 7 o'clock ESPN2. Ole Miss, a bad Ole Miss team at Tennessee. I would expect Tennessee to be ranked. Tennessee favored by 11. Texas also favored by 11 at home against South Carolina at 7 o'clock on the SEC Network. 8 o'clock on Peacock. St. John's, number 25 as of now, should climb a little bit at DePaul. St. John's favored by 9 in that matchup. Your best game of the night is right here, 9 o'clock ESPN2. NC State at SMU. Both teams, like right now, this would be like, I know it's ACC, so it's not going to happen. Maybe SMU's like a 7 or 8 seed right now. NC State's probably like a 9 or 10 seed, so like sort of first round matchup-y. Obviously, it can't happen because they're both in the ACC, but SMU's favored by 1 at home. 9 o'clock, CBS Sports Network, number 21, St. Louis at Davidson. Davidson's no slouch, not great. St. Louis is a must-watch team. They're so fun. 10 o'clock, Peacock, maybe the best game of the night. This is really good, just like NC State and SMU. Indiana at USC. USC been playing better. Chad Baker-Mazara is having a really good year this season. Indiana is favored by 1 on the road in that one, continuing to, we'll see if they can continue to pick up quad 1 wins. Now let's talk about Wednesday's matchups just briefly. This is just courtesy of the CBS Sports app. Let's start with at 6:30 on Peacock. Seton Hall needs some wins desperately bad. They are going to Villanova. Villanova is favored by 8 in this matchup, 6:30 on Peacock. At 7 o'clock, SEC Network, Texas A&M, who I would expect to be ranked in this week's AP poll. I would expect Alabama to not be ranked in this week's AP poll, even though it's opposite on this graphic. Texas A&M with their biggest test at Alabama. Alabama is favored by 6 via KenPom in this game. 7 o'clock, Big Ten Network, Michigan State looking to get off these, after that loss against Michigan. Going to Minnesota, to the barn. Minnesota has been struggling. Michigan State favored by 9 on the road in that one. 7 o'clock, FS1, UCF coming off of that big win at Houston. I don't think they're going to get a victory here. Houston is favored by, can't find it on here. I'm just scrolling KenPom right now, and it's so hard to find these games on here. Houston favored by 12 in that matchup. 9 o'clock, ESPN2, Oklahoma is struggling. Kentucky can't have a little bit of a hangover game here. Got to keep it going if you're Kentucky. Kentucky is favored by 10 at home at Rupp in that game. 9 o'clock, FS1, number 13, BYU and AJ Devanza heading to Oklahoma State. BYU favored by 5 on the road. Oklahoma State's kind of fallen off the bubble a little bit, but the bubble is struggling lately, so Oklahoma State still has a chance. Same goes for Stanford, who is hosting number 22 Clemson at 10 o'clock on the ACC Network. Clemson favored by 4 on the road. And then 11 o'clock, FS1, Utah State just had to play San Diego State. Now you got New Mexico. Good stretch for them. New Mexico actually favored at home in that one by 2 at the Pit. So that's going to be a very, very fun environment at 11 o'clock on FS1. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Remaining ad-free. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button before heading out. It really helps us out. Turn on those post notifications and follow us on Instagram at Bracket Science with 2 S's, where we are continuing to post all these fun graphics every day, multiple times a day. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to come back on Thursday, as we're going to have a full bracketology episodes. We'll dive more into the bubble. We'll talk some mid-major hoops, talk about where these teams might land. Like I said, there's probably not a ton going to change. I say that, and it always ends up changing a ton with these top seeds, because it's not the busiest slate of college hoops this week, but Saturday is stacked. So we will preview those games in that bracketology show on Saturday. We get Duke, North Carolina. We got a ton of good stuff on Saturday. So be sure to come back for that on Thursday. Be on the lookout. Everyone enjoy this week of hoops. We'll talk to you Thursday. Till then, take care.